Naruto is a show that has gotten infamous for its absurd power-ups and escalations to the point where it's become a huge meme. I've had my fair share of arguments and contemplations, but one thing I've always kept in mind is that Naruto is a narrative, and a shonen manga at that. So it's unsurprising that power escalation would go hand in hand with the narrative beats of your characters, regardless of how it affects the world. I think the best example of this is Naruto learning Sage Mode. Does it make sense that Naruto got so powerful after a week even though Jiraiya never mastered it after years of training? Maybe not, but it's as clear as you can get when it comes to surpassing your master in the narrative. But there's one power-up I don't like in this context, and it's the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Specifically, I don't like how Sasuke unlocked it, and I don't like when he unlocked it. To explain why, I need to go over his previous power-up. The Mangekyou, to me at least, represents Sasuke's mental state after Itachi's death in the same way his curse mark represented his edging closer to Orochimaru's darkness. Specifically, a self-destructive rage that gave him the power to destroy the cause of his grief. As for the self-destructive part, it's connected to the idea of deep grief and pain that would come from killing someone you love, as well as destroying yourself to use that power. It also literally blinds you and makes you cry blood, which is quite the obvious use of symbolism. It was this rage that led to him attacking Killer Bee despite his injuries from fighting Itachi and not retreating when Zetsu sicked the 5 Kage on him. He went from fight to fight without rest, letting his body, mind, and eyes deteriorate. My problem is that the EMS kind of fixes all of these problems after a surgery he could have had immediately after Itachi's death, even without letting go of the self-destructive hate the Mangekyou was supposed to represent. And he didn't actually let go of that hate until Itachi's second death and his conversation with the revived Hokages, which is when I believe he should have gained the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, not by installing Itachi's eyes, but by letting go of his anger. Every evolution of the Sharingan has come in conjunction with the state of the user's mind, unlocking it via a burst of emotion, entering the Mangekyou via pain, etc. But EMS is an anomaly in that it's basically just taking the already fucked up eyes of another Mangekyou user and implanting them. It's an oddly biological aspect that doesn't even make sense because Itachi was even blinder than Sasuke. By having the EMS begin by learning to let go of one's anger, it can fit better into the angle of a power-up as part of a person's narrative. Plus, it will make obtaining the EMS a lot more difficult as letting go of your rage and hate is a lot harder to do than switching eyes with someone. Apparently. This change would affect the 5 characters with the Mangekyou in the series in different ways, but not as widely as you might imagine. I don't believe this change would affect the 2 characters who did wind up with EMS. Just because Madara and Sasuke let go of their hatred, it doesn't mean they changed their motives. Sasuke's final goal during the last battle with Naruto was not based on hatred, but a desire to revamp the broken shinobi system, so nothing like the Uchiha massacre could happen again. Madara's goal of changing the world with the infinite Tsukuyomi wasn't really based in any hate towards anyone, but rather a pseudo-benevolent, if narcissistic, desire to save the world. Just because they've let go of their hatred and rage, it doesn't mean they're right. For Obito, take your pick. Do you believe that he really let go of his hatred and reign alone wasn't the motivation for his actions? Or do we just keep the canon explanation of Hashirama cells? Kakashi's a trickier one, but he could show an interesting idea. The guy strikes me as someone who has matured past his negative feelings, so he'd probably have an EMS. If he does have an EMS from the start of the series, I don't think that much would change. You wouldn't even need to have him use it too often because the base Sharingan alone was extremely draining for him. And as for the interesting idea I spoke about earlier, Have Kakashi's Sharingan temporarily devolve when he learns the truth about Obito, as the self-loathing and loss that caused the eye to be unlocked in the first place comes back. Itachi might be the most radical change if you believe he's also let go. His lack of an eternal Mangekyou Sharingan would mean that on some level, Itachi still hasn't mastered the pain that caused it to be activated during Shisui's death. I don't believe this would take away from his character because you don't turn your younger brother into your suicide weapon without a little self-resentment. And it might even add some nuance. Plus, you could connect his illness to the several years of stewing in the feeling. Maybe the Mangekyou slowly kills you if you don't evolve it.
I wanted you to grow up and judge me. I deserve to be dealt with only by another Uchiha. I took advantage of the hatred inside you. That's why I failed.
Actually, his self-hatred might be more canon than I thought when I began writing the script. This version of the EMS, as I envision it, is based on maturity. While the Mangekyou Sharingan comes to fruition as a result of pain, the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan is a maturation as you learn to tame your pain and hatred before it can destroy you. The EMS is not my least favorite power-up in Naruto. It's not even my least favorite power-up in Sasuke's arsenal. But I believe that more than almost any other power-up, it's the most disconnected from the narrative beat it's supposed to be connected to. But with these changes, I think it would make Sasuke's motivations and feelings a lot clearer to the audience, as well as better integrate the EMS to the narrative. For more Naruto content, check out my channel.
Inferno style! Susanoo Flame Control!